Welcome everybody to today's call, Creating Self-Motivated Project Teams. I'm Kevin Aguano, I'll be your host for today. On the call, we have Vijay Verma, and we'll be hearing from him today on this topic. And I think you're going to be delighted with the material and his presentation. Vijay is an internationally renowned speaker and a best-selling author. In fact, his first 3 books on the human aspects of project management were published by PMI, and after the PMBOK Guide, they were the top 3 selling project management books in the world ever. Since then, he's written more books, and he's received all kinds of accolades for his research and his work and his presentations. In fact, he received the 2009 PMI Fellow Award, their highest and most prestigious award. In 1999, he received the PMI David Cleland Project Management Literature Award for one of his books, and the PMI Distinguished Contribution Award for his sustained and significant contributions to the profession. Also, the PMI Southern Alberta chapter named him an honorary fellow, and the Project Management Association of Canada has named him a fellow as well. He has an illustrious career. He was a researcher emeritus and has worked for close to 40 years in project management at Triumph, Canada's nationally funded Tri-University Mason facility, a particle research facility at UBC in Canada. And he's provided tons of project management within that environment. He's served the profession greatly, serving on the boards of various PMI components, chapter presidents, etc. He's done a great service to the profession, giving lots of talks and presentations and sharing his knowledge and experience. And we're very lucky to have him here today. Vijay, welcome to the call.
Thank you very much, Kevin.
Excellent. We're excited to hear you talk about this topic. We are being recorded for everybody who's in attendance. For the recordings, we're recording the slides and the voiceover. Your images will not be recorded unless you make a verbal comment. I encourage you to enter your questions in the chat window or the questions tab. If you're on the web interface, just click the little arrow to expand your control panel and you'll see the chat and questions options, and you can type your questions there. We will be answering questions at the end, but feel free to type them along the way as they occur to you so you don't forget them, and then we will read them out at the end, and Vijay will take a moment to respond to them. Vijay, take it away.
Okay, thank you very much, Kevin. Good morning. Good morning, everybody. I'm on the West Coast, so I'm saying good morning. But if you guys are all on the East Coast, good afternoon, or almost getting good afternoon. The topic for today's webinar is creating self-motivated project teams. Why did Kevin and me chose this topic? Because these days, it is very important for the employers to have people on their teams who are self-motivated. That really solves half of the problems. And those self-motivated people are always ready to go, and the performance is very, very high as well all the time. So this is a topic which is very important for today's times, when there's a very tough global competition. They're coming out of pandemic. So it is even more and more important. How do you really, first of all, create self-motivated teams, and then B, sustain them so that they stay as the self-motivated project teams for a long time. Okay, so as Kevin already said, there's nothing much for me to say. This is me. I worked for over 40 years actually at Triumph. Triumph is a Tri-University Mason facility. If anybody knows CERN in Geneva, which is the largest particle accelerator lab in the world, this is Canada's CERN. And these are my 3 books published by PMI, and this is my 4th book published by Multimedia. So let's talk about some of the questions and issues about creating self-motivated project teams. So I will touch a little bit about, I know this is basic, you possibly know this a lot, but I think it's important to understand what is motivation, and what is the motivational process. What's the motivating process? It's good to know that. And how do you move from traditional management to Smpts? So I may use this just acronym in saying self-motivated project team, Smpts. So just Bear with me if I do that. So how do you move from the traditional management SMPT environment? What is SMPT and why do we need it at all? What are the benefits and the main features of SMPTs? What are its main components of the culture? What are the main steps in building SMPT? Because that's what we're talking about today as well. And what are the stages of SMPT maturity cycle? What is the role of empowerment? You will notice that as I go along, that the key, the central theme of SMPT is empowerment. The reason those people are self-motivated, because they are empowered. They feel quite free to express their views, to learn from each other, and so on, and make certain decisions within certain boundaries. I think that's the only thing that we have to be very careful, that somebody has to act as the boundary managers or the boundary leaders. What are the challenges during transitions, SMPT, when we're going from the traditional management to SMPT? What are the leadership issues and the challenges? So if these are the questions and issues, what should you do? And that is the webinar that we have really created for you. The learning objectives are, you will understand the motivation process, motivating factors, and the expectancy theory. Why did I pick up the expectancy theory? Because this is the one which is directly applicable or very nicely applicable in a project management environment. Then I will talk about the main components of SMPT culture. So we will try to answer all those questions that I identified in the previous slide as the questions and issues. We'll differentiate between traditional management and SMPT culture, understand the importance of empowerment. As I said, empowerment is the key to create self-motivated project teams, and identify the main steps in creating SMPTs, enhancing synergy, recognizing challenges in managing SMPTs, and developing skills for leading SMPTs. Because that's another thing that you may think that, well, the team is self-motivated. Why do I need a leader? Why do I need a manager? Yes, you do need it, but the role is a little bit different. It's not just like a manager for the managing the processes and so on. It is more for expanding their horizons of the self-motivated project teams so that they are ready to take the challenges and opportunities. So this is the model for achieving the most from your people by creating SMPTs. There are three things that we need always: teamwork, leadership, and communication to get the most from your people. But in order to create good teamwork, good communication, and good leadership, for the self-motivated project teams, the other keywords are trust, respect, and self-motivation. They are self-motivated, and the members all trust and respect each other. That's very, very important. And they feel empowered, and that's how you get the most from your people. This is a motivational process. I'm sure you've all seen this before. You got certain needs and wants that creates drives, which is kind of a state of unrest or dissatisfaction, saying, oh my God, I want this, so I need to do something. And you causes us to plan and implement. You take certain courses of action. And when you take a course of action, you achieve your goals, which could be your wants or the needs. And if you achieve those goals, you're satisfied. If you don't achieve those goals, you're frustrated. And then you figure out that you got to modify your actions. And if you're satisfied, it is still important to understand, get the feedback, and reassess your needs. And when you're looking for satisfaction, the satisfaction has to be the one which satisfies you the most. I think that's the important thing. It is more valuable if it satisfies the needs that you value the most. I think that's very important. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the model of expectancy theory here. In order to get the extra effort from people, because that is really what we are trying to hope, that when we have created self-motivated project teams, they're always willing to give their 110%. They're always willing to spend their extra effort, and that really gives should give extra performance or higher performance. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about these links. And then when the people perform, they should get the reward. And the rewards are only effective if they satisfy the need. Now, which needs? That they value the most. So then rewards really satisfies your needs, and then you're ready to, then you feel like doing more effort, and the cycle goes on. And these are the three links that you have to understand in this process. One is the effort to performance link, that's called expectancy. Performance to reward link, that's called instrumentality. And the reward to satisfaction, that's called balance. And the managers or the leader's role is to make sure that probability of all these things is high. Effort to performance link is strong. That means if people are willing to spend extra effort, then their performance and contribution to the organization will increase. What does that mean? That the organization provides them the right tools, right information, right processes, and environment so that the performance does increase. And when the performance does increase, then it is the job of the senior management to make sure that the instrumentality is high. That means that the likelihood that the reward will be satisfied. They will get the reward. And the reward that they should be choosing to give to people is the one that they satisfies the needs that they value the most. So that means that the balance is very, very high as well. In a project management environment, you can say, so, okay, the questions related to all these three links are effort to performance link. So the people really wonder and think about it when they're coming to the self-motivated project teams. Can we do it? Now, in order to answer that question and reinforce it and make it and make an affirmation to the people, that the management then has to provide the proper training, proper information, proper resources, proper support, and the proper guidance. But remember that support and guidance for the self-motivated project team should be given only when and where they need it. Okay? And then is the performance to reward link, that if we do it, what are the consequences? What am I getting for it? What's in it for me? Because everybody asks this question in this world. So that means that they should be giving the reward. So the manager's job or the leader's job is to make sure that they get pre-approval from the management to give the rewards. And then, is it even worth the extra effort? Is the reward to satisfaction? And that's where I said, ensure that the reward satisfies the needs that people value the most. Now, the self-motivated project teams are self-motivated and they are driven by objectives, okay, challenges and opportunities. So that means they already feel like doing that extra effort. And what we have to do is facilitate this process so that they stay self-motivated. So the team members now seek justification to work harder by themselves because they get a sense of accomplishment, sense of accomplishing results, because with the mutual cooperation from each other, and that satisfies them. They also learn from each other, and then they seek proper rewards, and the leaders must provide the rewards that they value the most. These are the motivating factors in project environment, and these are the simple turn-ons and turn-offs. And the ones which are the turn-ons for the self-motivated project teams is the sense of accomplishment or achievement. That is really what drives them. What drives them are the objectives and a sense of accomplishment. And the other thing is really drives them is cohesive and harmonious teams. As I said, there's a lot of trust and respect. So the teams are working very cohesively, and there's a high level of trust and respect. Okay. So really, the turn-off, no team spirit, that doesn't exist in self-motivated project teams. No recognition for good performance. As we said, that the performance to reward link has to be stronger. So that is all there as well. So many of these turn-offs are not there for self-motivated project teams. And this is a acronym that I created when I was writing my books, like the motivation, what a motivation is in a nutshell. And I think for the self-motivated project teams, the keywords which are relevant is they have a tolerance for failure. They understand that the things may not work all the time. So that is what they have the tolerance for themselves as well as for their team members. And that's what develops the creativity. And they value the efforts and recognize the good performance. So that's what they do is get rewarded. They trust their team members and be trustworthy. This is vital for motivation. And above all, they are empowered by the organization and they empower project team members appropriately as well, especially for decision making and implementation, because especially when it comes to implementation, many team members could get frustrated when they come up and bring the results and bring the issues and there is nobody to make any decisions. As I said before, that the empowerment is the key for self-motivated project teams. So really, when you go from the traditional directive management to self-motivated project teams, this is the empowerment continuum you have. So for the self-motivated project teams, the empowerment is the highest. And for the directive management, traditional directive management, empowerment is low. But when you start increasing empowerments, now you really ask for employees' suggestions. They're encouraged. Now they participate. It's a genuine participation. Remember, not just a lip service. And then they take responsibility themselves and they create task forces to meet particular objectives and the quality circles. And now the teams performs management functions by themselves. And what the managers act as, the team manager just simply as an interpreter in case there are any confusions or misalignment in their understanding and the organizational strategies and goals, and act as a facilitator. And then we have the self-motivated project teams. And this is just another way to look at that one. The traditional management model, you have the top management, you have the project manager, and then you have all the team members. Whereas in Smpts, this project manager's job itself is very, very weaker as a traditional project manager, because Smpts are driven by their objectives, self-motivation and empowerment. So they don't need close day-to-day supervision or anything like that. And this is just another way to look at that one. So these are all the team members. They're all driven by the project objectives and are the project manager. And the project manager is mostly working as the team manager is mostly working as a facilitator. Could be external, but most of the time it should be internal. Sponsor, mentor, coordinator, single point of contact, Mr. Spock. And what I like the word the most is that person is a champion. And I will touch upon this role of a champion a little bit later on as well. But this is a champion who believes in you, wants you to succeed, and removes all the obstacles for you. And the common values in Smpts are they set up the ground rules. Have they going to make decisions? How are they going to manage conflicts? How are they going to manage the performances? And how are they really going to have the success criteria? And they set values for quality. Quality cannot be compromised. And then the productivity, and above all, the safety as well. Okay. Why do we need self-motivated project teams? Well, the reason you need self-motivated project teams because there's a global competition, resources are scarce, and we need organizations to be more faster, flexible, and responsive. Okay, that's very, very important. Span of control is increasing these days, so it's not really that one person is in charge of everybody, so the hierarchical system has to go out. And there's an information revolution. There's so much information coming. So I think the people or the team members have to be smart enough, have to be really knowledgeable enough to just process that information and take out the one that they really need. And employees need a lot of change in the sense they need psychological enrichment. So when people come to work, they should be excited. They should be enthusiastic when they're coming to this self-motivated project teams. So all those members need, they get this psychological enrichment, which is very, very important. What are self-motivated project teams? It's a group of people who perform multiple tasks, manage themselves with minimum supervision or no supervision at all. They are responsible for the whole work process, not just a certain work packages only. And I think that is the concept that is being used in the Agile as well now, that you're going through the whole process. Plan, schedule, organize, implement, evaluate, and make decisions themselves. And they share responsibility for the success and failure of the team. Like we all swim together and we all sink together. The main features of Smpts are they outperform their traditional counterparts. That's well proven. They apply, you have to apply this Smt concept not just for one segment of the organization, but throughout an organization, not just at the working level, constitutes the journey rather than the destination. So Smt is the journey, not that once you got some teams which are a little bit self-motivated, you stop there. No, it is ongoing all the time. It's not a thing to do, but it's a way to do things. So it's not something you do, but it's also like being. Those people just enjoy now being in the self-motivated project teams. And you take their directions from the project goals and the objectives and not the supervisor. The main features are they need a different kind of management, means that they don't need managers, but they need team leaders rather than managers who act as trainers, coaches, because managers and supervisors only plan, organize, and so on. They emphasize commitment rather than control. And Smpts leverage potential across the whole organization. This is really how they're able to produce a high performance, because they really get the same kind of thing and they try to get the most out of the rest of the organization as well. So what are the three main components of Smt culture? You have to have different mindset. You have to, organizational design has to be compatible, and the relationships have to have these elements. When you talk about creating an Smt, as I said, empowerment is the key, is the central theme, and the mindsets for the managers is to act as the coaches, facilitator, emphasize on collaboration and mutual respect, and the mindset for the team members is that they tend to the process and the content. They take full responsibility for what they do and for their tasks or assignments. They take responsibility and accept full accountability, and they seek continuous learning. And the relationship between the team members is based upon collaboration, open communication, focusing on process, mutual trust and respect, and the shared accountability. As we said, we swim together and we sink together. And the rewards and penalties they understand, which are now the team's one. So the organization design has to be, in order to create a Smt culture and sustain it, has to be flexible. Reward system has to be objective. Politics have to be minimized. And the management philosophy is really empowerment and providing opportunities to those people and empowered work climate. I don't think I'll spend more time here. These are the shifts from traditional to Smt culture. And that is basically Smts now are not, as opposed to reactive in traditional, they're more proactive and innovative. Another thing that is nice thing here is to understand in traditional teams or management, boss is still responsible, but here is a shared responsibility. Everybody is responsible, and we focus more on problem solving, not finger pointing, and they are driven by objectives, and the atmosphere is more collaborative rather than more competitive. So this is the 4 steps in building an Smt and the 5 stages of maturity cycle. You have seen this before: forming, storming, norming, performing. So it's kind of related to that. But for Smts, first thing you need to do is you have to set an overall ambience. There we are talking about forming, storming, norming, performing is just building teams. Here we are building Smpts. So you think that there is already a little bit of a team building, but what we need to do is we need to create an ambience. So define why should we use it, how and where they will be more useful, and identify the potential resistance and concerns. And then the stage two, and the stage two is actual team building, creating team environment, giving constructive feedback. And now the important thing is to gain commitment of all the team members by defining their roles, responsibilities, building effective team communication system, demonstrate and deliver management support. That's very, very important. Means a champion. Champion, remember, is the one the second role was, who has enough organizational clout and the influencing skills, means the positional power, as well as the real interpersonal skills or influencing skills to make things happen in your favor, only in the sense that they remove the roadblocks when you face it. And the step 4 is evaluating the impact of that in the overall organizational success. So that when you relate these to the stages of maturity, then stage 1 and 2 of maturity, investigation and preparation, is here, and implementation and transition to Smpts is your step 2 and 3, and the step 4 is when they really become mature, and then you kind of evaluate the maturity level and then make sure that you really keep on increasing that to some extent. Okay. So let's look at now the empowerment. Empowerment, as I said, is the key for self-motivated project teams. Empowerment is a different way of working together. Empowerment doesn't mean that you just tell people that, oh, you're all empowered, you can make your own decisions yourself. No, there has to be the boundaries. So you're actually giving them the control and the freedom. They have to experience the sense of ownership, and they have to feel psychological enrichment. That means that then you're giving your empowerment. Otherwise, it is just a lip service. When you're talking about empowerment, it could be at an individual level, team level, and organizational level. Empowerment emphasizes continuous improvement. It's not just, oh, you're empowered, so you've done something good for this week. No, it has to be continuous improvement. And empowerment requires giving authority, resources, information, and accountability. So when you're empowering people, in order to get the results that you're looking for, if they become self-motivated project teams, you have to give them the necessary authority to go along with responsibility. You have to give them the resources. You have to give them all the information that they need, and they feel accountable. Actually, it's not that you have to hold them accountable, but actually they feel accountable on their own. Anything less than that, if these things are not met, is just a sham. Few more ideas about empowerment. If there's a self-motivated project teams and empowerment. So basically, this tough global competition has created an acute need for competitive operations which are faster, flexible, and responsive, creative, innovative, and more committed. Let me share with you what I really mean by faster, flexible, and responsive. When we talk about faster, responsible, what I really mean is that the traditional triangle has to be inverted. In other words, customer has to come on the top, actually. This is really how it should look like. Customer has to come on the top. The traditional one is top management, middle management, operational management. That's a customer. That's more responsibility way of looking at it. a responsive way of looking at it, customer goes on the top management, middle management, and operational management. And the Smpts thread runs in all different levels. So to increase the customer satisfaction, organization must focus on customers rather than anything else. So as a consequence, when you have the self-motivated project team, authoritarian style is the style of the past. Bureaucracy and hierarchical are no longer appropriate. Occasional employee participation are no longer sufficient. Smpts are based on empowerment, as I said, and it's the potential solution for the future. And when we talk about so let's just talk about enhancing synergy in self-motivated project team. When the teams become self-motivated, means that they look at all the destructive team roles, drivers for team building and so on, and they really capitalize on those things. Self-motivated project teams are able to anticipate conflicts. And because all the team members come from different backgrounds, cultures, skills, and so on, they capitalize on differences. And they treat these differences as strengths rather than getting hung up on that one. And same thing happens about the multicultural issues. They address the generational issues. Now, this is the reality these days, that some of us as the baby boomers are working with the generation X and especially the millennials who think differently, who get motivated differently, who like to be communicated differently. So they have to, a self-motivated project team address these generational issues and validate the differences. They are open to what cohorts are looking for, means what makes work more rewarding, which environments are most productive, what type of workload schedules and policies should be there, and what will retain people of different needs, viewpoints, and expectations. And when we talk about multi-generations, let me just share with you a little bit. These are the generations that we are all facing in an organization that we are working together. Traditionals, I mean, most of the traditional possibly are retired, of course, now, but there are still lots of baby boomers in the workforce and Gen X, and they're working with millennials. And they have a different way of looking at it, right? I mean, the younger generation will come out and give you these things and saying, well, I have a new rule. I will not attend meetings that go beyond 5 p.m. I have a life and my own priorities. So I told my boss that if you're looking for loyalty, go buy a dog. And then some of these millennials wonder, oh my God, he has no work ethics. That's what the baby boomers think about the millennials. He has no work ethics. He's just lazy. At his age, I was grateful that I had a job. And the millennial says, well, he asked me, that's the baby boomers asked, think about the millennials. He asked me, do you have an email address? And felt like telling him, yes, buddy, since you were in diapers. And these are the sounds of different generations in conflict that you hear after happy hours, lunch times, and so on. They have no work ethics. They just want everything handed over to them. You schedule a meeting at 3 p.m. on Friday, get a life. He wants to meet with the senior managers regularly to get feedback on her performance. That is how the millennials are. If he asks us to write one more vision statement, I'm out of here because I just want to work and produce something. So basically, I think these are the generations in conflicts that you hear, but self-motivated project teams address these generational conflicts and try to resolve them. And as I said, they capitalize on these differences rather than getting hung up on that. What are the benefits of Smpts? They're better than traditional working groups. And a survey of transition in the countries Japan, Taiwan, Australia, Canada, and Holland came up with this result that the 93% reported improved productivity, 86% reported lower operating cost, then improved quality, better employee attitudes. But remember, Smpts cannot substitute for business basics. You still have to have organizational strategies, organizational goals. You have to have champions. You have to have a management who is willing to take actions to minimize the negative impact of politics. and make sure that the reward system, which is objective enough, and rewards for the high performance. And Smpts will not work if your goals and objectives are wrong to start with. Remember, because they are driven by objectives. And if the technology is wrong, in other words, the information is not proper, the tools are not really helpful at all, then Smpts won't work either. These are the challenges that you face during transitions to Smpts. Managers may feel a loss of power and a status. And they kind of wonder, oh my God, now we are going from the traditional to Smpts, and it's the same person now who is still not fired or anything like that, has to become a leader of the team, but they have a big walker rule. Never let go with one hand before you grab with the other one. So they're kind of in between, and they have a fear of losing job. But every team needs a coach or a leader to support and teach rather than command and control. So I don't think they lose a job. They just have to act more as a boundary manager. And the double standard syndrome, when the role is not reflected by the organization's top management, means leading by example. Okay? And empowering is seen sometimes by some managers as if they are being disempowered. That is not true. Smpts simply just create an expanded role. So really the managers now act more as a leader and more as a champion. And as remember champion, I said, champions have to play two key roles. A, they are interested in your project and initiative and want you to succeed. And B, they have enough organizational clout and influencing skills, means the positional power as well as the influencing skills, and remove roadblocks to help you out. So they actually more act as a champion. Who are the team leaders? Let's talk a little bit about the team leaders in Smpts. Team leaders work on the system, whereas supervisors work in the system. When I say work on the system means they're continuously evaluating, is this system working for an Smpt culture or not? If it is, using the participation from everybody else and involvement, they're willing to change it. So these are the leaders who don't think it's different than that, who think, well, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Their idea is if it ain't broke, break it. Means I am ready to break it as long as it helps creating the Smps and getting the performance from them on an ongoing basis. They act as boundary managers to manage the impact of the project environment on the team, and they alert the team to such issues as what are the market conditions. If they're changing, then they may have to give a little bit different direction and a guidance to the Smpts as well, so that they can remember they have to be very responsive, faster, and flexible. Technology changes, socioeconomic issues, as well as any regulatory issues, and so on. So other thing, as I said before, I think it has become very clear by now that the managers are not working as a manager only for planning, organizing, executing, and controlling. They're working more as a leader. That means that they're working as a coach, teaching, developing, and invoking synergy, maintaining a balance of authority and accountability. They are working more as a business analyzer so that they always see the big picture and help the teams, Smps, see the big pictures. And if there are any challenges, then they turn these changes and challenges into opportunities. They act as facilitator, encourage positive responses, and they provide proper tools, information, and resources. And above all, they are the barrier busters. They open doors by shifting status quo, and they want to get rid of all those destructive team roles that we see happening in the teams all the time. And they walk their talk. They manage and lead by examples, and they're the customer advocate. They maintain the close customer ties and keep the priorities in focus so that we achieve success, which we really have started from right from the beginning. So let's talk a little bit about some of the destructive team roles that often may come along the teams. Okay, so the aggressor. So some team members, I mean, Smpts hopefully have really reached their maturity level, and you don't have many of these things. But if you do have from time to time, you need to identify those ones and remove them or replace them with the constructive team roles. So the aggressor who criticizes and deflates the status of others, saying, oh my God, this is not a practical approach at all. And then the blocker who rejects the views of others, saying, this will never work. The withdrawer holds back. So basically, he will just come up with the saying, well, if you don't agree with me, then you can do what you like. So now they really hold back and not willing to participate and contribute. Recognition seeker, he seeks attention by monopolizing discussions, saying, oh, I've done this many times successfully. So basically what they're saying is listen to me and do what I'm really telling you to do. Topic jumper, who just keeps on jumping from topic to topic. We're talking about one discussion. We're almost reached to a conclusion. And there he comes and says, oh, let's talk about other options now. That takes time. That takes energy. Dominator tries to take over the discussion by saying, oh, I am sure this is the only way to go. And this devil's advocate, now devil's advocate is not bad. It can be positive or negative. The positive devil's advocates bring in the challenges for you to improve your processes, to improve your plans, to make it most effective. And the negative are the ones which really just are killing the ideas altogether. Basically, they're saying, have you looked at this from this perspective? You must consider this to make it work, and so on. Instead of that, what we really need to do is be constructive, create some constructive team roles, and this is the culture you want to create in Smpts. We want more initiators. Oh, let's do this. Information seekers, don't we have some better information? Do you think we could dig out something else? Information givers, saying, oh, my experience is in a situation like this, I did this, this, this. Encouragers, if somebody comes up with a great idea in a team, great, that was of great help. Clarifiers, I believe that we are saying, so when teams are going through this brainstorming, very good session and coming up with lots of ideas, you do need people who are summarizers and clarifiers. So people are talking about many, many things. From time to time, you summarize and say, oh, I feel that now we can come to an agreement on this. And I believe what we are all saying is this. And when you do that, then harmony becomes easier. And then everybody will come to a conclusion. Yeah, I believe that we're all saying the same thing. Wherever the little bit points of differences were, the clarifier and the summarizers have brought that up. And the gatekeepers helps others participate. Now, if one person hasn't really contributed much, it's a good idea to reach out to that person and say, hey, we haven't heard from you from the back of the room. What do you think, Bob? What do you think, Roger? And I think those are the things which are very, very important as well. Other thing I guess you need to understand is when you're creating self-motivated project teams in a situational leadership style, as we all know, it's a maturity level of people, and the maturity level is M1, M2, M3, M4, and the leadership style you need to match with them, and that is the situational leadership, that you match the leadership style with the maturity level of your followers, of your team members. So with L1, you have to have M1, L2 is M2, and so on. So from the best leadership style for the Smpts is that you have to take them from telling stage, tell, sell, gel, and then in the end, you have self-motivated project teams who need low support and low direction, but you should really give them a support and direction when and where they need it, not breathing on their neck all the time. I want to just end this actually with some quotes about Smpts. Well, the Ralph Steyer from Johnsonville Foods said, when I started this business of teams, I was anxious to get it done and get back to my real job. And then I realized, hey, this is my real job to create self-motivated project team. Empowerment is not a single change, but a total shift of everything about the way you do business and work together. And there are no shortcuts. As I said, on one of the slides, I showed you what this empowerment is all about, and that's what you have to provide to your people. On a deletion from Levi Strauss said, on a day-to-day basis, my passion comes from backing people's efforts, getting them from what they need to do the job, educating them, and working with them as members of the team. And that is a little bit of empowerment as well. And the leaders for us Smpts are best when people barely know they exist, means don't become obstacles for them or barriers. And not so good when people only obey and acclaim them, because you want to really get more out of your people by challenging them to come up with more creativity and innovation. It is worse when they despise them, but of good leaders who talk little, when their work is done, their aim is fulfilled, people will say, we did this ourselves. And to go further, when you have a desire and a commitment to play as a team, so first as an organization, willingness to create an Smpts culture, and then you as a team leader has created that culture, then excelling is no longer a work. These are just some of the seminars I do. Please contact Procept Associate for any of these. This was my 3-day seminar, which sometimes we don't even have 3 days for people to come up for training. So which then we took the leadership out and have the power, influence, and politics for 2 days. And further, instead of 2 days, it can be split into 2 one-day seminars, Art of Positive Politics and the Art of Influencing Without Authority. Leader or a manager, negotiating with confidence. I just did this actually as a half-day workshop, or it can be a 1-day work. I'm going to do as a 2-day workshop for PMI in November. Negotiating with confidence, mastering the win-win approach, managing cross-cultural, multi-generational virtual teams, leading with emotional intelligence, developing trust and synergy, and analyzing your political landscape, which is a part of small section of the Art of Positive Politics, swimming with sharks without being eaten alive. And this is a series of the webinar that Procept had organized, and have done these seminars on March 24th. We had analyzed your political landscape for project success, swimming with sharks without being eaten alive. Then we had managing a multi-generational workforce by April 21. I think Kevin has pointed out he possibly may have a recording of these ones that you can have an access to by creating Procept, by contacting Procept. Manager's Guide to Developing Trust and Synergy, we did that last month. And today, that's what we're doing, creating self-motivated project team. And in September, we are planning to do the leader of a manager. And for the other topics, we have not really come up with the dates. So if any of you is interested in these workshops, please contact Procept Associates. We can do half-day to 1-day workshops on any of these topics. And even the keynotes can be presented for your lunch and learn sessions or anything like that. Okay, before I end, I always like to end with this one, that in order to have your Smpts, you have to be enthusiastic yourself, and you can only enthuse others if you believe in the last 4 characters, means I am sold myself. You yourself have to believe in that, then only you can have a strong conviction and self-commitment. And don't need to jump too high. Do not try to do the great things, do the little things with love. I like that from Mother Teresa. Here I am. If there are any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer any of your questions. These are some of my coordinates, vkverma49@gmail.com. And you can go to my website, www.verma.ca, and you can contact Kevin from Procept Associates for any information about me.
Perfect.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Vijay. Okay, everybody, that was a great session. I learned a lot. I really enjoyed it. Now's your chance to ask questions. So please type your questions in the chat window or the questions window on your web interface, your chat window or the questions window on the interface. Remember that you do get a PDU for attending this session, a continuing education credit. You can claim one. And if you need information on that, just give us an email, info@procept.com. Okay, we have the first question in, Vijay. It's from Serena.
Oh my God, Serena is my daughter.
It says, what can you really do with destructive team roles? I can't replace team members whenever they are negative. I have no one left. How can we change their destructive behaviors?
That is a very, very nice question. And that is right, that we can't hire them, fire them, and so on. I think you just have to have a style which is very welcoming. First of all, they should not feel threatened that you're really trying to use your authority to shut them up or anything like that. You just have to do them slowly and slowly. And once people realize that, they may listen to you. Another good way to do that is when you are creating your teams, and if you ever, once you have your project teams, it might be a good idea to sit down together with the participation of everybody and set certain ground rules. And the ground rules are, how are we going to conduct the meetings? In the conducting of the meetings, we're not going to interrupt other people and so on. So some of the destructive roles that you have that we pointed out there, you can write those down as the ground rules for conducting meetings. Then there is another flip chart, how are we going to make decisions? Third one, how are we going to solve the problems? How are we going to manage the rewards? And so on. So you can just pick up some topics there, have them on a flip chart, on a flip like a 16 by 24, laminate them, and put them with the Velcro on all your team room or war room that you call it. So now you have created these things together. And one of the simple truths is people support what they create. If they were a part of creation of this process of creating ground rules, then they hopefully will follow that and certainly support you as well. And if some people are still following some of these destructive team roles, then in a very innocent way, you can try to point out their attention to those roles and those flip charts emanated on a Velcro flow chart that you have in the team rooms. That this is what we talked about, guys. So let's not waste time this way. Let's get back to work and really focus on how we can increase performance. I don't know if that answers your question or not. That's what I have done is create ground rules together, put them on the wall, and hopefully people will learn.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Great answer. Okay, again, if you would like to ask a question of Vijay, just type it into your chat window or the questions window. We have a question from Glenn. What are some of the things we can do to create an Smpts when you are surrounded by dominators often?
I think there you do need the help of the top management. As I said, that the organization has to support this culture. That means that you have to have some champion. And remember, the role of a champion is they have enough organizational clout in terms of positional power, as well as influencing abilities, means how to influence people to help you out achieve this. So if you do have some dominators, if they're higher up in the organization, then your champions will look after that. It's the same thing like when I was doing this session on swimming with sharks without being eaten alive. So those sharks are in different sense are the sharks who really try to steal resources from you, credit from you. But here you're calling them the sharks who are really dominators. Then if you have a champion, you use your champion to protect you from bigger sharks, and you kill the baby sharks with those ground rules that I talked
about. Okay, very good. Question from Chong.
Yes.
It says, I work in government. We are not, sorry, the grammar isn't very good here. We're staff. I guess he means our staff.
Understaffed or
Our staff are not motivated.
yes.
Sometimes getting people to expedite something is very difficult. Do you have any tips for motivating government teams?
I think again it has to really, because motivation is an internal phenomenon. It is not like a battery charger that you can plug into people and motivate them. It's an internal phenomenon. So the hard work is to create an environment whereby people will feel motivated themselves. Anything else you're doing from time to time by giving them incentives, bonuses, and more money and so on, as you all know from the theory of motivation and hygienes, they're all hygienes. They're not really motivators. So you do have to work on people. So the question I really ask is, what will turn this person on? And it is different for different people. Everybody's interested in what's in it for me. Always think of a question, what's in it for them? And if you can figure out that question and you can provide that thing, then you can motivate that person. Remember, when you provide them that thing is the one that they value the most. Only that would help. So motivation is not an internal, not like a battery charger you plug into people and they'll be motivated. And even if they are, they will be motivated for 1 hour, 2 hours, and then they go back to their thing. So I think it is the culture that you have to create. I'm not able to give you just a prescription or an answer just like that, but it is an internal phenomenon. You have to recognize that. Your management has to recognize that and start creating those cultures. So you can look at those motivators, turn-ons and turn-offs, and make sure that you provide those things which turn on people.
Okay, very good. Thank you very much, Vijay. That's it. We don't have time for any more questions. We're at the top of the hour. So thank you very much, everybody, for your participation. This is one in a series of webinars. We run them approximately every couple weeks throughout the year. The next one is on a self-aware leader, the self-aware leader, and that's coming up on July 8th, 2021. Okay, thank you very much, everybody. Appreciate your attendance. Appreciate the great questions. Vijay did a great job as always. Thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you very much.
Bye for now.